She walked quietly into the opera hall, a simple woman in a blue dress. When the famous soprano fell ill and they needed a replacement, everyone exchanged smirks. They were about to witness musical history and the most satisfying comeuppance this prestigious venue had ever seen. The golden chandeliers cast warm light across the polished marble floors of the prestigious Milan Opera House. Crystal glasses clinked softly as distinguished guests in evening wear mingled before the night's performance. This wasn't just any venue. It was La Scala, where musical legends were born and careers were made. Stella Romano stepped through the grand doors, her simple blue dress and worn purse making her instantly conspicuous among the designer gowns and tailored suits. At 34, she stood out among the elite crowd, but she wasn't there to blend in. She was there to experience the magic of opera firsthand. Two women standing at the base of the staircase looked Stella up and down. One, dressed in deep crimson velvet, whispered to her companion, "Apparently anyone can buy tickets these days. In the old times, this place was reserved for the elite only." The other replied, bringing a champagne flute to her lips, "She probably wandered in through the service entrance by mistake." The staff must not have noticed. Stella was used to these looks and comments. For 5 years, she had worked as a night cleaner at La Scala, picking up after people like this, cleaning their crystal glasses, discarded napkins, and spilled drinks. Being invisible was normal for her, but today was different. Today, she was a spectator. As a child of Naples's poorest neighborhood, Stella had grown up with a mother who worked the cleaning houses but harbored a deep passion for opera. Maria Romano would save every spare penny to buy secondhand opera recordings, playing them in their tiny apartment, where the walls were so thin that every argument and laugh from their neighbors filtered through. Opera, Stella, her mother would say as she placed a record on their old player, is the one art where both the poor and rich feel the same beauty. Music is food for the soul, and perhaps our souls are richer than our bodies. Every evening after dinner, Maria and young Stella would listen to opera. Maria taught her daughter the stories, the lyrics in Italian and their original languages. By the age of 8, Stella knew the entire story of La Bohème and all the songs of La Traviata by heart. If only my mother could see me now, to witness the pride in her eyes, Stella thought as she made her way to her seat in the opera house. Maria Romano had passed away 2 years ago from lung cancer. Even in her final days, she had hummed Puccini's O mio babbino caro in her hospital room. "One day, Stella," her mother had said before taking her last breath, "one day your voice will be heard. Just be patient and never give up." After her mother's death, Stella had moved to Milan. She wanted to be close to the opera, close to the music. She had no education or means to pursue a musical career, but at least she could be near the world's most prestigious opera house, hearing the finest artists. So she had found a job as a cleaner at La Scala. As Stella entered the main hall, her heart raced with excitement. With her simple blue dress and worn purse, she stood out among the other spectators. She could hear people whispering as she passed. "Look at that woman! What is she doing here?" They must not have checked tickets at the door. Probably a cleaning lady who got lost. Stella lowered her head, trying to ignore them. She had dreamed of this moment for years and wouldn't let anything spoil her pleasure. When she reached her seat in the very last row, she took a deep breath. She opened the opera program and began reading every word hungrily. The program notes described Sofia Bellini's dazzling career. She had graduated as a brilliant student from the Milan Conservatory, and by 25 was performing lead roles on the world's most important opera stages. Now at 35, she was at the pinnacle of the music world. We're the same age, Stella thought. She's the queen of the stage, and I'm the maid who cleans the floors. But there was no jealousy in this thought, just an acknowledgement of life's strange irony. The hall was gradually filling. The seat next to Stella remained empty. Perhaps no one wanted to sit beside her. Fortunately, the lights began to dim, which made Stella relax. In the darkness, everyone was equal. The musicians took their places in the orchestra pit. Maestro Carlo Rizzi acknowledged the orchestra with his baton. The hall resounded with applause. The first notes of Verdi's La Traviata overture began to echo through the hall. Stella closed her eyes, absorbing every note of the music. She knew these melodies, humming them every night as she cleaned. Sometimes when the hall was empty, she would climb onto the stage and sing to an imaginary audience. In those moments, she imagined herself in a parallel universe where another Stella Romano lived a different life. But after just 5 minutes, agitated voices could be heard from behind the stage curtain. The music suddenly stopped, and stage director Marco Visconti appeared on stage with a worried expression. Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that soprano Sofia Bellini has suddenly taken ill and will not be able to perform tonight. A groan of disappointment rose from the audience. A wealthy man in the front row shouted, "What nonsense! We bought tickets specifically for her." Unfortunately, our understudy is also performing in another city, so we must cancel tonight's performance. Your ticket prices will be refunded. Wealthy spectators began to rise from their seats in anger. Someone shouted, "Such a scandal is unacceptable at the world's most prestigious opera." Stella remained in her seat, her heart tightening. She had saved every penny for 5 months, had dreamed of this special night. Now everything had vanished in an instant. The songs her mother had taught her echoed in her mind, especially Violetta's famous aria, Sempre Libera. Stage director Visconti raised his hands. If there is a professional soprano in the audience who can sing the role of Violetta in La Traviata, please identify yourself. The hall fell silent. Everyone looked at each other, but no one stepped forward. Cancellation seemed inevitable. Stella's heart was racing. All her life, she had sung opera arias before going to bed each night. She knew La Traviata by heart. In her small apartment, she would sing opera pieces with passion, albeit quietly to avoid disturbing the neighbors. Once, while working late at the opera, she had started singing Violetta's arias in the empty hall. Completely absorbed, she had poured all her emotions into the song. When she finished, she heard applause and looked around in fear. An elderly staff member named Carlo had emerged from a dark corner and was looking at her with tears in his eyes. "I've worked in this hall for 40 years, Carlo had said. "I've heard many sopranos, but your voice doesn't just sing a melody, it tells a story." Stella had been embarrassed and had made sure no one heard her again. But now, watching this crisis unfold in the hall, a voice was rising within her. "You shouldn't do it," she thought. "Your voice isn't trained. They'll throw you out. You'll be humiliated. You'll lose your job." But the voice inside was stronger. "This might be your only chance. For once in your life, feel truly alive." She remembered her mother's last words on her deathbed. "Never give up, Stella. Your voice will be heard." Trembling, she stood up. Her heart had risen to her throat. She raised her hand and, in a barely audible voice, said, I can sing." No one heard her. Stella gathered her courage and called out louder, "I can sing Violetta." All heads turned to the back, toward the source of the voice. The stage director squinted. "You? Who are you, miss?" "My name is Stella Romano. I work as a cleaner here." Sounds of surprise and mockery rose from the audience. A woman in luxurious attire whispered to her neighbor, "Look at her. She thinks she can replace Bellini." What audacity! A man in the front row shouted, "Is this a joke? We want our money back." Visconti frowned. "Ms. Romano, I understand this is a joke, but our situation is serious." "It's not a joke, sir," said Stella, her voice now stronger. "I know La Traviata, all of it." A woman in the front row laughed. "A cleaner! Going to sing La Traviata? This is truly amusing." From the front rows, Riccardo Salvini, La Scala's music director, stood up. He was an elderly man with white hair, his hands shaped by years of conducting orchestras, his eyes sharpened by evaluating thousands of musicians. "Let her try, Marco. What do we have to lose?" Visconti hesitated, then shrugged. "Very well, Miss Romano. Come to the stage." Stella walked toward the stage amid the audience's mocking looks. As she climbed the stairs, she stumbled, nearly falling. Several people snickered. A group of young people took out their cell phones and began filming her, probably to mock her on social media. Standing on stage under the bright lights, her legs trembled with fear. The grand atmosphere of the opera house now looked completely different. Hundreds of eyes were fixed on her, most mocking, some curious. Maestro Salvini approached her. "Which section will you sing?" "Ah, Forse Louis from the first act," said Stella. This was one of Violetta's most challenging arias. Salvini raised his eyebrows. Are you sure? This is a very difficult piece. I'm sure, said Stella, closing her eyes. Salvini called the orchestra to their places. The musicians settled in, some exchanging skeptical glances. The maestro raised his baton, and the orchestra began the introduction to the aria. The aria was a technically extremely challenging piece that expressed Violetta's complex emotions. It contained passages that even professional sopranos hesitated to attempt. But for Stella, this song was one of the first arias her mother had taught her. Every note, every word had penetrated her soul. Stella took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and completely surrendered herself to the flow of the music. And then she began to sing. The first notes were trembling and timid. A couple sitting in the front row rolled their eyes. Someone from the back rows shouted, "Oh God, terrible!" Some audience members began to leave the hall. But then Stella's voice opened up. A soprano voice of crystal clarity, smooth and incredibly powerful, filled the hall. The tension of the first measures disappeared, giving way to grace and confidence. The musician's eyes widened in surprise. Maestro Salvini's baton hesitated for a moment. This voice couldn't be untrained. This voice was the result of years of discipline and passionate work. An elderly critic in the front row removed his glasses and wiped them, as if he couldn't believe his ears. Those who had been preparing to leave paused and slowly returned to their seats. Stage director Visconti ran backstage with his mouth open and called for the head costumer. "Prepare Violetta's costume immediately," he ordered, "and call the makeup team." When Stella reached the most difficult part of the aria, she held the high C note with such grace and power that the audience held their breath. This note was feared by many professional sopranos, but Stella executed it perfectly, as if she had been waiting for this moment all her life. The hall fell completely silent. The audience held their breath, unable to take their eyes off this simple-looking woman. Those who had mocked and dismissed her earlier now listened in astonishment. When the aria ended, there was a moment of complete silence in the hall. Then a single applause was heard, then another and another. Suddenly, the entire hall rose to its feet. A storm of enthusiastic applause erupted. "Brava! Bravissima!" voices rose. Stella opened her eyes, looking in astonishment at the applauding crowd. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She had never imagined this moment. A woman called from the front row, "Now that's a real Violetta." This voice is a jewel. Maestro Salvini came to her side, his eyes showing both astonishment and deep respect. "Ms. Romano, this is incredible. Where did you train?" Stella shook her head. "Nowhere, Maestro. My mother was passionate about opera. She worked cleaning houses to support us, but saved every penny to buy opera recordings. I grew up listening to her records. We would sing together every night. But why are you working as a cleaner?" With this voice, Stella answered with a bitter smile. "I come from a poor family. I couldn't afford to go to a conservatory. When my mother died, I thought the only way to keep her alive was to be close to the opera. So I started working here." Salvini placed his hand on Stella's shoulder. This voice should not remain hidden. That would be a crime." Stage director Visconti interrupted. "Ms. Romano, would you like to continue with tonight's performance? Can you sing all of La Traviata?" Stella's eyes lit up. "Yes, sir. I know every note." The hall erupted in applause again. "We must find you a suitable costume," said Visconti, "and urgently makeup." But Salvini intervened. "No, Marco. Violetta is an upper-class woman in the first scene, but at her core she is a simple person. Let Ms. Romano perform in her own clothes. Art is not in the costume, but in the voice." Stella's blue dress might not have been glamorous, but it was clean and elegant. Under the stage lights, its modest beauty became even more pronounced. Preparations were quickly completed. A brief meeting was held with the other soloists, everyone trying to adapt to this unexpected change. Stella was offered Violetta's score, but she said, "No need, I know it by heart." When the curtain opened, the hall was full again. Those who had been preparing to leave had returned, and people outside had heard the news and come in. Everyone wanted to witness this incredible event, a cleaning lady taking the lead role at La Scala. The opera began. When Stella took the stage as Violetta, She felt a moment of apprehension, but as soon as the music started, she completely surrendered to the character. Her Violetta reflected the loneliness of a woman amidst luxury, the contradictions brought by love, and the pain of sacrifice. In every area, every duet, Stella's voice and interpretation mesmerized the audience. The other soloists were also affected by her energy and had elevated their performances. A miracle that no one expected was taking place at La Scala, considered the pinnacle of the opera world. During the second act, as Stella sang the Addio del Passato aria, an elderly woman in the front row began to silently weep. This woman was Renata Tebaldi, a famous soprano who had played the role of Violetta on the same stage 20 years ago. She whispered to her neighbor, "This girl isn't just singing, she's bearing her soul." In the final act, during Violetta's death scene, Stella demonstrated such emotional depth and sincerity that sobbing could be heard among the audience. Her voice perfectly reflected the complex emotions between a person's struggle to survive, love, and ultimate surrender. When the last note faded with Violetta's death, the hall held its breath for a moment. Then an unprecedented storm of applause erupted at La Scala. People stood up, shouting, "Brava! Brava!" Flowers rained onto the stage. Stella, in tears, bowed to acknowledge the audience. People who had once dismissed her, mocked her, were now giving her a standing ovation. But Stella wasn't thinking about that. She was thinking only of the music, her mother, and the moment she had dreamed of. When the curtain closed, there was great excitement backstage. Opera director Alessandro Ricci firmly held Stella's hand. "Ms. Romano, I want to add you to our company immediately. Such talent should not remain hidden." Stella couldn't believe it. But, but I'm not trained. I've never... We heard that voice, Miss Romano. It's a natural talent. Of course, you will receive training, but your voice is already here. Ricci pointed to his heart. Audience members who had previously ignored and mocked Stella now lined up to meet her and shake her hand. When she went to the dressing room, Stella found a bouquet of red roses on the table. The card read, "Only you could interpret Violetta so magnificently in my place. Thank you, and congratulations. Sofia Bellini." Stella touched the roses, tears flowing down her cheeks. She looked in the mirror. She was still the same Stella, but now there was a different light in her eyes. The confidence and peace that comes with achieving your dreams. Costume designer Giulia entered, holding one of La Scala's most valuable costumes. "Ms. Romano, your prima donna costume for tomorrow's show." Stella asked in surprise. "Tomorrow? Again?" "Of course. All tickets are already sold out. You've created a sensation on social media. The hashtag conquered by Stella is trending." That same night, as she left the opera, a phone call changed Stella's life. World-famous opera manager Antonio Vargas wanted to represent her. "I recorded your voice," Vargas said excitedly. "Tomorrow I'll call the director of the New York Metropolitan Opera. I'm sure they'll want to see you." Within 3 days, Stella's story had spread worldwide. News headlines about La Scala's cleaning lady soprano were everywhere. Leading figures in the opera world flocked to Milan to witness her performance. Critics described her voice as the discovery of the century. La Scala's general manager created a special scholarship program for Stella. She would receive world-class education while continuing to perform in the opera repertoire. Her natural talent was so powerful that trainers were eager to perfect her technique. After playing the role of Violetta at La Scala for 5 weeks, Stella signed her first international contract, the lead role in Madame Butterfly at the Paris Opera. But before leaving Milan, Stella wanted to do one last good deed. She proposed to La Scala's management to start a special program for cleaning staff and other backstage workers. Each month, one performance would be dedicated specially to these workers. Because true art lovers, Stella said, are sometimes found in the most unexpected places. After her final performance at La Scala, Stella found a letter in her dressing room. She recognized her mother Maria's handwriting on the envelope. How could that be? Her mother had died 2 years ago. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written by Maria in her hospital room, but never delivered to Stella. Hospital nurse Lucia had brought it. "To my dear Stella," the letter began, If you are reading this, I am no longer in this world. But your voice, oh, that beautiful voice, must still be illuminating the world. I always believed in your talent. Life wasn't easy for us, but we overcame every difficulty with the magic of music, didn't we? Remember, true song comes not just from the lips, but from the heart. And your heart, my dear daughter, has always harbored the most beautiful melodies. I love you forever. Your mother. Stella, in tears, pressed the letter to her chest. You were right, mother, she whispered. Finally, my voice was heard. Nurse Lucia explained. Your mother wrote this letter to be given to you when you performed on the stage at La Scala. She never doubted it. Your mother was a great visionary. 6 months later, Stella Romano was no longer a cleaner at La Scala. She was performing in a leading role at the New York Metropolitan Opera. Critics were calling her the voice of the century. She had won the prestigious Golden Voice Award, one of the most esteemed prizes in the opera world. With her first big earnings, Stella established a music school in the poor neighborhoods of Naples. At the school she named Maria Romano Voice Academy. Talented but financially disadvantaged children received free music education. The school quickly became a center where talent was discovered. Her first official return to Milan was when she took the stage as the lead soloist at La Scala's opening night. The same hall, the same stage, but this time all eyes looked at her with admiration. In the front row were seats she had reserved for all of La Scala's newly hired cleaning staff. Among them was the newest cleaner, Elena, a 19-year-old girl passionate about music. During the performance, Stella noticed her lips following along with the arias. There was a familiar sparkle in Elena's eyes. After the show, Stella invited Elena to her dressing room. You sing too, don't you? She asked. Elena nodded shyly. Just to myself, ma'am. No one hears. Stella smiled. Would you sing for me one day? Elena's eyes widened. Me? For you. But I'm just a cleaner. Stella gently took the young girl's hand. So was I. And if I've learned anything, it's this. True value is not in clothes, titles, or social status, but in the heart. A few days later, Elena sang for Stella in the empty opera house. Her voice was shy but filled with natural talent. Stella accepted the young girl into the Maria Romano Academy with a full scholarship. Thus, the story of a woman who transformed from invisible to visible led to the discovery of another talented soul, and this cycle became a tradition in the opera world. In an interview with a journalist, Stella was asked, when you were a cleaner at the Milan Opera, did you ever dream of performing on stage? Every night, Stella replied. But what's important is not just dreaming, but being ready to realize that dream. I practiced every night with my mother's records, worked on notes in every spare moment. When opportunity knocked, I was ready to open the door. The journalist asked another question. What would you say to people who judge you by your appearance? Stella thought for a moment. I would tell them that a treasure is hidden within every person. Sometimes this treasure may be concealed beneath life's hardships, but true art, true talent, is not in clothes, appearance, or social status, but in the heart. And the heart always finds a way to express itself. And what does your heart tell you? Asked the journalist. Stella looked out the window at the Milan sky. Keep singing. Not just for yourself, but for everyone whose voice goes unheard in the world. Because sometimes all we need is a chance for someone to believe in us. 2 years later, Stella Romano was on a world tour. She performed everywhere from New York to Tokyo, London to Sydney. But on a certain day each year, the anniversary of her mother's death, she would return to La Scala and give a special performance. Only the city's cleaners, caretakers, cooks, people generally overlooked, were invited to this performance. In these shows, Stella would sing her mother's favorite arias. At the end of each performance, she would tell the audience, each of you has a song inside. Maybe not opera, maybe not even music, but a passion, a talent, a gift to offer the world. Discover it and never be silent. Stella Romano's story gave people around the world the courage to pursue their dreams. She became not just a world-famous soprano, but also a symbol of the extraordinary talents hidden behind ordinary appearances. Over time, a phenomenon known as the Stella effect emerged. Talent scouts in the opera world now look not just at conservatories, but at ordinary professions as well. Some major opera houses even began to hold regular talent discovery nights among their employees. Today, if you enter the Milan Opera House, a bronze statue of Stella Romano greets you at the top of the grand staircase. The statue represents a simply dressed woman holding a cleaning cloth in one hand and an opera score in the other. The plaque below reads, "True art transcends appearance." And every evening, after the shows, if you walk through the streets of Milan, you might hear opera voices rising from open windows. Perhaps one of them is the next Stella Romano, a jewel waiting to be discovered, a unique voice to offer the world. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced a moment when your talents were recognized unexpectedly? Where are you watching from? Do you have a talent you'd like to share? Share with us. Until our next story,